So hey there, everybody. I know we're just doing a back-to-back podcast with some amazing people in the space. So today we have Abbas here, and he's actually been in the space for a while now, and I actually like his PFP on Twitter. Do follow him on Twitter as well. I'll be leaving the links down below. But let's get started with the intro right away. So Abbas, tell us about yourself. Tell us what you're building, and why are you even in the space? Right? A blunt question, straight up question. Why are you even in space, and what do you think about it? But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. For some quick context, right, on who am I and what do I do and where did I come from? I used to be a marketer for the longest time. I think I've been a marketer for 5-6 years. Started with content writing and then slowly moved towards working with brands, influencers, startups, etc., community management, all sorts of things across the country, actually, with multiple brands. And while I was doing that, I was also studying and all of those things. So I had a huge consultancy thing going on in marketing. And I slowly moved on to figuring more about, hey, Bitcoin, Ethereum, all of those things. And I firmly believe, like, when you start out with a new space, the best way to do it is to write about it. And it's always been my motto. So I write about, let's say, marketing. That's how I jumped into marketing. I write about finance. I jump into finance. And I write about Bitcoin, Ethereum. That's how I figure out, hey, here's where I want to be. And when I started, I think early 2020 is when I started in the space, just exploring more about it. And then I figured out that, hey, something called NFTs do exist. I had heard about it a while back, but I had never dived deep into it. And as I explored NFTs, I realized that's where I want to be, because that's where the most amount of innovation is going to happen in the next couple of years, especially because we finally figured out a way to attach value to digital goods online. And that was not possible before. So it's possible now, attach creative value and all of those things. So that's where I jumped in, worked with a bunch of projects, bought a bunch of projects, invested in them as a collector, and spent a huge amount of my time in the next 8 months, 10 months, just working with these projects, working with influencers in India, helping them get started with NFTs. How do they approach this space? Helping web2 companies start with their strategy with metaverse, with web3, all of those things, right? That was a part of what I did for the longest time, and I still do it actively. But in the last 8 or 10 months, I've also been a part of Superteam, helping them build their bounty program first as a member and then as somebody who works with them. And then I also continue to do my strategy, tokenomics, and all of those things that I consult on for all Web3 protocols, most Web3 protocols.
Amazing. So, so you say that you entered into the space like early 2020-ish?
Correct. Yeah.
Got it. So, but then you told us about NFTs, right? Why do you think? Because I personally am into the NFT space as well, and honestly, there are definitely a lot of biases that I have. I'll definitely say I'm very bullish on NFTs and the innovations that are going to take place. So why don't you tell us, right? Why don't you tell us what kind of innovations do you think will take place, and why you so much into NFTs? Because I think Superteam, I think it has a great community, and even in the last our Solana hacker house, it was great to see the community members. It was great to see so many people there and so many innovations, right? And even the podcast is amazing. I'd personally say kind of got this idea from Tanmay and Akshay. So thought, let's start a podcast, and do have to agree on the point when you said writing is what gets you in the journey. So yeah, go ahead, Abbas. Tell us about it.
Yeah. As far as NFTs are concerned, I think there's a difference. Fundamentally, people confuse NFT projects and clubs with what's the blockchain about, or what the blockchain allows you to do. Right? These are clubs being built on the blockchain.
In what way?
So projects and NFT projects that come together on the blockchain are clubs, are exclusive clubs that are for X purpose. Could be IP, could be whatever the purpose is. The internet. Let's to fund maybe a particular use case on the blockchain. But the blockchain itself is open to everybody and accessible to anybody. So that's one fundamental difference, where people get confused with the idea of that project priced at a certain amount, not inclusive, etc. Right? So let's fundamentally differentiate between that. And then we talk about the applications. Now, projects are one application of what is possible in the blockchain. You can fund, build stuff together. And then within that, you'll have an array of, let's say, a range of projects that can have different applications, use cases. For example, projects will have IP use case. So some projects are built around IP, animated shows, comics, all of those things. That is their one application. The other is somebody wants to build a world, a metaverse world, or build a virtual game world, etc. All of those things. That's another use case. Somebody wants to purely make it a CC0 project where it's about open building. Anybody can participate, build something on this layer that they've introduced. So that's one whole side of applications that's possible.
Okay. Okay.
There's also a range of other applications which nobody is currently discussing about, but it's going to be the most prominent one. And these are applications in which people will not even know these are NFTs, right? People will think of these as, hey, digital goods online. Now, for example, all of the discussion around, let's say, potentially having house listings or timeshare agreements online, which are then marked with NFTs, right? These applications, nobody would even consider being on the blockchain.
On the blockchain,
but then you would be actually using it for day-to-day purposes, and you'd be like, cool, I have something that allows me to prove that, hey, I own this piece for X amount of time, and I can use it. Now, there's some issues around privacy, etc., and hopefully ZK can solve all of those things. But that's one application which will probably take us mainstream, right? Clubs and exclusive projects won't take us mainstream. They are supposed to be brands funded by people who then carry the upside from, let's say, merch, IP being marketed.
Makes sense.
Yeah, all of these things.
Makes sense.
So those are some applications that I can think of, at least for right now.
Got it. Yeah, because I personally think, bringing like blockchain NFTs into the supply chain, I think that is something great, right? Because I mean, the biggest example I'd say is definitely of counterfeit goods, right? Ab Louis Vuitton ka koi hai, Gucci ka koi hai. You don't know if it's real or not. And the funny part is the ones the factories in China that are manufacturing the real goods are sometimes also the exact same factories that are making the counterfeit ones, right? And itself is a great use case, right? And there are multiple of them and so many use cases that come.
I think Kevin O'Leary is a huge proponent of that particular use case. He's not a fan of Gen PFPs. He'll often say that, hey, he is a watchman. He loves watches. So he wants to build a site where you can attach watches to NFTs, etc., and figure out a way to make it foolproof.
Exactly. And, I'd say, I personally disagree with him a little bit because, but I love Kevin O'Leary and what he does. But, when he says about, I actually because he's definitely a watch connoisseur, right? You see it from the watches that he has because that is very, very liquid and anywhere in the world, because if you're traveling, right, worldwide, if you're traveling, you can't carry more than $10,000. And if you have a Richard Mille, you just travel, right? And that, that's a different topic again. But yeah, I'm just relating that a little bit with PFPs because I think PFPs have also become like watches. Abbas, because what the PFP that you have, I think the pink one, can you explain that also? Uske baare mein kuch bata sakte ho? What is it?
My current PFP is what
Yeah.
My current PFP is by an artist called MGXS, who is also one of the artists with Clonex Artifact. And he has perfected his model of procedurally generating species or images with his own tech. It allows him to code art like that, right? So he's also a tech person who can manufacture these pieces. And these are, let's say, 10,000 uniquely generated art pieces which have their own universe, etc. So yeah, you're right in that sense, right? Like all of these special pieces, in many ways, a lot of the PFPs, which are exclusive clubs, let's say manufacture only X amount of NFTs per year or per every 2 years. They allow for you to be a part of an exclusive club. So just like how Rolex, etc., would work. Fundamentally different. I think the fundamental difference would be that watches don't necessarily use their supply to fund something and build something else out of it, like a full product, which is the difference with NFTs, right? NFT is not the product in the projects; it's the funding mechanism used to build the end product. The end product would be IPO.
Correct. Yeah.
So maybe that.
Of course. And also when you told what's saying, right? Because NFTs, jo bhi hai na, it's like an entry mechanism for people, for people who are new to the Web3 space to enter into a Web3, and when they start discovering it, because there's a lot of culture attached to it. Is it right? What do you think? Because this was my analogy, but what do you think?
Pretty much. I think that's been my pitch for everybody who wants to get started with NFTs, right? Like I've realized that there's been more people onboarded onto the crypto ecosystem by NFTs than by DeFi protocols, because it's
Okay.
fundamentally easy to understand. While people may say a lot of garbage about NFTs that, hey, it makes no sense, on quite the opposite side, there's a bunch of people that it makes sense to, and NFTs were their first step into the web3 ecosystem or crypto ecosystem. So yeah, absolutely. There's a bunch of people every single day.
So, one question that comes into my mind is, you're working with Superteam, of course. So, you Solana or Ethereum? What do you sir?
Yeah,
Solana or Ethereum?
Yeah, that's one thing that I've been very clear from right from the beginning. When I started in crypto, I never wanted to be a maxi of anything. So I'm open to every single chain that shows up, because not just because I want to be on the upside of every chain, but because I want to understand more about why one is better than the other and why I should be on that and not the other one, right? So it allows me to think clearly. If I was always a Bitcoin maxi, which was the immediate thing you'd hear as you start in crypto. If you start crypto, the first thing you hear when you talk to people is be a Bitcoin maxi, because everything else is not worth it. And I'm glad I fought against it. My early days in crypto was me arguing with people on Clubhouse and challenging them to prove to me that why Bitcoin is the only coin that matters, and there's not other applications that can be built on other chains. Like, why does your use case of the blockchain matter more than my use case of the blockchain, which is fundamentally different.
Perfect.
I love NFTs. I love to use the blockchain in a certain way, which is accessible to anybody. If you dictate how I should be using the blockchain, that means you're no better than a centralized party that tells me what I should be doing.
Perfect. Yeah. I agree with that. Because the whole point of Web3 is, decentralization, right? And yeah, I mean, decentralization right now is, kind of being used as a buzzword. Decentralization hai, NFT hai, ye hai, but to the core, right? It actually is that, right? Because I mean, I've spoken to a lot of people, right? But no one has given me this point that NFTs are actually being used as a fundraising mechanism to build the end product. Once you have the community, and it is also incentivizing the people who've been a part of it, right? And that is just mind blowing. Because
think of it, right? How hard is it to build a token-based project? So if you launch a token, use that as a funding mechanism to build something, a protocol on Web3. People are obsessed with the price at all times, and they will bully founders into making something happen for the price and not the actual end product. But with
which
NFTs,
price are you referring to?
The token price. So let's say you drop a fungible token, not a non-fungible token, a fungible token, the coin market. You drop coins.
Okay.
And if you fund your project with that, people are obsessed with candles. So they'll check the price and they'll be like, okay, the price is going down, do something for our prices. But if you launch an NFT project, and if the focus is also geared towards the art that's being created, people are also obsessed about that cultural phenomenon, and they're not just obsessed about the price going up and down. For example, the NFT space is holding up fairly well. As far as ETH value is concerned, not the USD value, ETH value, the flows are holding up pretty well, because people don't care as much, except for a few traders that come in for liquidity, etc. Everybody else is focused on their PFPs because they love what they bought. Plus, they support the project creators that are building something phenomenal for the next 2-3 years, right? So it takes the attention away from money and culturally being a part of a community.
Correct. I think this itself is really profound, Abbas, right? Because whoever's entering the space in the first place, all they care about is, I mean, I have been through that phase too, right? Token, money, what is happening up? And, looking at the charts every day, okay, this and that. But back to the Dunning-Kruger effect, right? Because, even I think even Tanmay, big fan of Kunal Shah, and brings back the philosophy and psychology of human beings, saying we've evolved into these social animals. So it comes back to being wired as human beings. So the Dunning-Kruger effect. So when you initially start off, you start off reading some articles and watch some YouTube videos, maybe watch Superteam podcast, and you watch two of these for Instadap and Sandeep Nelwala, and you think, okay, I'm the smartest guy in the room, and then it hits you, right? And that comes in place when you always start off, or people ask you to start off as a Bitcoin maxi, and then when you start exploring, you go down to the valley of despair, saying, "Bhai, mujhe to kuch pata hi nahi hai. I know nothing." And then we start connecting with people. We genuinely start building. right? I think,
Yeah.
I generally saying it doesn't feel like, it feels like you're already here, and it's actually great. I'm loving this conversation of us.
It's
So,
also like, right, when you push your energy towards putting something down as opposed to learning more about it, like the Bitcoin maxis, the problem I face with them is they're not genuinely curious about the space. Their efforts are driven towards how do we make sure that we point a flaw in ETH or point a flaw in Solana and pull it down as an ecosystem. They lack fundamental understanding that mainstream adoption will not come directly to Bitcoin. It would come in multiple forms to the Web3 ecosystem, to crypto, etc., etc. And eventually maybe people flourish and like join Bitcoin to find store of value, etc. Right? That onboarding process is not always going to be Bitcoin. So if they were only open to genuinely criticizing something because it's not working and then finding ways to fix it, as opposed to saying, hey, you are wrong, but my thing works best, so just join this instead, it would be a lot better for the
correct. So, I mean, I have this analogy, right? Because that's what I've seen my friends and myself also in this. So whoever enters the space, they start off with, they start looking out for good communities to be a part of. And, even Superteam, right? But buying these NFTs. And then once they start buying NFTs, they start exploring, the entire chain and what is happening. And eventually, maybe they get into Bitcoin as they see the inflation rates are really, really high, and it's just mind blowing, and that high. And they use Bitcoin as a hedge for inflation, right? What do you think about this?
Yeah, I think Bitcoin as a hedge for inflation is not so. When we talk about Bitcoin as a hedge, right, we don't talk about the fact that its price does not go up and down or it constantly keeps growing, but we talk about its properties, its monetary properties that make it so that it can be an inflation hedge, let's say 10 years from now, or even from like started to now.
Correct.
Right. When we speak about it, we speak about all the properties such as, hey, scarce and nobody being able to edit the supply, all of those things that make it fundamentally
and
sound.
the scarcity as well.
Scarcity, correct. So everybody talks about that, but always the media, people that are new, retail, etc., will always confuse it with something else. They'll be like, okay, if you said hedge against inflation, that means that the price should not be fluctuating or not be going down as opposed to, let's say, stocks, etc. today. It makes absolutely no sense. And we've never promoted that, right? You never said that the price won't go down tomorrow or the next year or the next 2 years. We've always spoken about why it's structurally sound to help you the next 30 years. You don't talk about inflation in 1 year. It's never been the case, right? People don't worry themselves about inflation in 1 year in most cases, in 1 year terms in most cases, unless it's like extreme, like the last couple of years this year. Otherwise, it's always about, hey, 10 years from now, I'm going to lose a bunch of money if I don't protect it. So why are you valuing in 1 year terms? Talk about 10 years, right?
Talk about the next 10 years. Correct. So, I mean, one major question that I have is, what do you think about India in this space, right? Because the 30% thing that we know, it's actually, don't you think it's actually pushing a lot of, a diaspora of Indian talent to Dubai, Singapore, and countries which are, very crypto friendly, because there you can buy cars, watches, and even houses with crypto. And I think because there's, I think even with Akash's and Tanmay's podcast with Balaji talks about moderately bullish on India, but highly bullish on Indians.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
so what are your thoughts?
Almost the same, right? You're right. A lot of the Indian talent is moving out of the country. I think most people that were involved on exchanges, which is going to see the most dramatic effect. I think you hear a lot of people, a lot of government officials as well as equity professionals talk about the fact that trading volumes have gone down to 70% or 90% from all-time highs. That's not because of the crypto markets. They are very confused, right? It's because of TDS that's coming now, or it's because of 30% and no loss set off, which is the absolute worst. I think I'd be completely fine with 30% and TDS, but the no loss set off thing is disastrous because it pushes people to not operate in the ecosystem at all. But I also do look at it as an opportunity. Now the focus is not towards trading and making money through quick investments and exchanges, but the focus is towards how do we do stuff with the blockchain, which is more important. How do we build stuff on the blockchain? Maybe the onboarding is a bit difficult. Maybe exchanges are the worst onboarding experience you can have if you want to be a valuable contributor to the ecosystem, right? The best onboarding is likely going to happen with communities, DAOs, etc. I feel like genuinely DAOs and general NFT project communities are the best way to onboard yourself, because you learn faster, you experience a lot more, you ask the right questions, you see what's happening with the market as well while you are a part of it, and then you just operate at high efficiency and you just contribute, right? Correct. I think that's one. And then you obviously can figure out a way to earn in the crypto economy, because now you do not have an efficient way to participate by deploying money or capital from a bank account. You cannot use UPI or bank NFTs, etc. Instead, you can now just go find the right kind of work you want to do in the ecosystem and earn money in crypto as well. And obviously pay your taxes that are due based on that. But then you have crypto to work around with. So there are ways you can still be an active contributor, and I'd rather have that than active traders that are just talking about price go up all day long.
Got it. And this is very interesting, right? Because, when I was just talking to Parin Lathia, I mean, just the previous podcast was Parin Lathia, and he was actually telling me about the entire WazirX thing, why it moved to Dubai, and what is use in it. But also you brought up this very interesting point, right? Because now we're talking about the DAO mindset, right? Let's say, currently I'm working at two projects right now, and if I do a bounty from some other DAO and I do another bounty, and I can I have different things to do. So I'm just not putting all my eggs in one basket. But then Parin has a different view, right? Agar kisi mein karna hai na, just go 100% to do it. And that's when you truly build. I mean, great views that also, but what is your perspective? What do you think about that?
I think it depends on what stage of your life you are in, and what section of, like, what do you want to do next? There's some discussions around, let's say there are some people who have already achieved a level of value, net worth, income in their Web3 ecosystem. And now are active participants in Web3, but they do not want to hustle like they used to. They want to take a seat, sit back and just be like, okay, I'm going to figure out bounties, go do it one bounty in a month. I'm sure I'm going to make a winning out of it because I'm that good. I believe in myself. Or let's say I attempt 5 bounties, win 1, and I get enough money to just like keep myself at pace, but I don't want to push for it. And maybe 3 months from now, I'm going to go back heavy and do a full-time project for the next quarter or 6 months and complete my yearly quota of having added X amount of value to myself and to the ecosystem. So you can pace yourself accordingly, right? So depending on what stage of your life you're in, you can opt for different formats of work. If you are somebody who's still figuring out what you need to do or what you're good at in the Web3 ecosystem, you can then again move to bounties, do a bit of bounty everywhere, participate in multiple types of bounties and formats of bounties, work with different companies, and then find what works best for you as far as a proof of work is concerned. It also allows you to build your portfolio a lot faster than going for like individual gigs with everybody. Bounties are quick credibility, quick reputation, quick money, and then you can use that to build your portfolio. If you don't win a bounty, you still get your portfolio that you've contributed as work. You made a submission, you did something, which you can then use to potentially get a full-time offer or even a part-time offer, right? So there's plenty of ways you can do this. It really depends on what your end goal is. And I agree with Parin to an extent that, hey, if you are going to go 100% in one thing, it's likely going to reap better rewards for you. But you also increase the risk you take because this ecosystem is so volatile. When you have one income source and one opportunity where you're focused, the risk reward ratio is probably in your favor, not in your favor, depending on where you are. So yeah, depending on how comfortable you are with that kind of an opportunity, everybody should attempt for it. Otherwise, stick to what you're good at. If you're good at doing multiple things in the same domain, let's say you're a marketer and you're good at being a marketer in the form of doing freelance gigs, but also consulting, and that's your gig, do that. That's completely fine. But if you feel like you want to be a part of one company or one particular project, then push for that. Let's say in 6 months, 1 year, whenever you're comfortable.
Got it. So, I mean, would you also be able to tell us more about your role at Superteam and how it functions? Because I did speak to a lot of Superteam members actually, but never got to just started speaking to the core, and even Akshay, right? Even Akshay talks about this. So tell us, right? What's the core of it, right? Because you're also like a meme, right? It's the best way to get banned out of a Superteam DAO is just ask when tokens there.
Yeah, That's a popular meme in the community.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so yeah, what is my role at Superteam? I obviously started as a member, or like 8, 9 months back, and I joined as a member by contributing something to the DAO, and that's been the DAO's motto all along. If you want to be a part of the DAO, you can't buy your way in. And just for somebody who's watching and does not know, you can't buy your way in. You can't do anything else besides contributing to the DAO. One, second is winning a bounty. The contribution to the DAO is no longer available. It's now moved to bounties. So you can only join a DAO by, let's say, winning a bounty and then participating in it. So I joined the DAO, and after that, I think a couple of months in, we were building stuff around the reputation system for the DAO, working around things like, hey, how do we add value? How do we record value and contributions for anybody who participates in the DAO and does X amount of work? And how do we allocate points, experience points for these people, right?
Got it.
And as we were doing that, we realized that, hey, there's this bounty program that's being run that I could potentially take up. So that's where I came in. We built the reputation system where people get allocated points. Then I took up the bounty program. And the bounty program is basically any sponsor, any protocol in the Web3 ecosystem, especially on Solana, like being built on Solana, can sponsor a particular bounty with us, the Superteam. And the bounty rewards range from $1,500 to 3K USD per bounty and split across 3 winners, 1K for first place, etc. That's the reward system, and anybody can sponsor a bounty. But what types of bounties can somebody participate in, and what roles would you look at? So the bounties are split in 3 or 4 different templates. I think 2 or 3 main templates, and there are some that are in the pipeline. So the first most common one is a deep dive template. So if you're a content writer or somebody who understands the DeFi protocol ecosystem, let's say you understand Web3 in general, you can learn, read, write quickly about a project. Then you can deep dive on a particular sponsor. Let's say CrowdPad did a recent deep dive with us. Solend had done a deep dive with us a long time back. There are multiple protocols that do deep dives with us. Chingari did one. So you can write a deep dive about one. Yeah, you can write a deep dive about them, and then you can submit and then basically win a reward if you come in the first top 3. Now, there's also design reviews. So you can redesign a complete website, a marketing page, and a DApp for the company if they sponsor one, and you get rewarded accordingly. So these 2 are the most common ones.
Perfect. Because, one thing that I've seen is, everyone in Superteam has actually started as lurkers and then gone to members. And now they're actually starting to build something on their own. Right? Because there are a lot of people, right? Even Raj Karya is building something. And I think Ujjwal also is actually building this, a payment platform. You directly connect it on Amazon, and then you scan and do that. So what's your take on that? Because I see that, all the young folks, they're basically moving from, in the Web3 space, they're basically moving from, working like a 9 to 5, nothing wrong with 9 to 5. I'm just saying, right? So they're moving from that kind of platform to more of a freelance gig version. And is that how the freelancer economy is going to be? What are your thoughts?
I think yeah, absolutely. I think so. Just for again context, right? Like I said, I used to also be a freelancer consultant in the marketing business, social media business. But I also was doing a full-time job. I used to I used to be a marketing manager for an edtech firm for almost 2 years, while I'm doing other things and like operating in the space. Just before I joined crypto full-time, I joined crypto full-time, I think start of this year. So I was still doing stuff here and there alongside my other crypto gigs, just exploring the space more. And as soon as I joined this space, or even before that, I've been operating with multiple companies, doing multiple gigs, expanding my horizon, knowing more about the industry altogether. And even in Superteam, every member, if you heard stories about them, it's mostly like that. Some people are not even from the ecosystem. They're not from Web3. They're not natives. They're from someplace else, some other industry, some other Web3 ecosystem, and they've joined this Web3 economy, and now either started doing bounties, doing missions, which is like short freelance-based work. Teams come together, build something, ship it, and do internal stuff in the DAO as well as external projects with other companies. And that's how they built their portfolio to then go and do either individual gigs or just join a company with that experience, right? So like I said, like explained before, it's been almost the same process, but there's some phenomenal talent building amazing projects. Like if you go in the DAO, which is obviously locked to the members, so not everybody can see it, there are a bunch of projects, let's say 8, 10, 20 projects at a time being built by various members who either raised money from Superteam, like Solana Foundation, through a grant program or through some other means, and it is building massive public goods for the ecosystem.
Wow. Yeah, I see a lot of them, right? Like Stellar Soul, Truth's Wallet, and Truth's, and so many other
very young,
stuff happening.
Young talent building amazing stuff. That's for sure.
Yeah. So, I just had a few more questions. So about the entire philosophy of NFTs, right? Coming back to the NFTs that we were talking about, what's the philosophy behind it? Because, if I just talk to my parents about NFTs, they don't understand, right? I mean, why is this monkey being sold for so much? And there's so many videos where we talk about this as well. But what's the philosophy behind it? What's the philosophy behind non-fungibility of these tokens?
I think we barely touched, like we just touched upon this a while back, but we moved past that. That is culture, right? Culture is what drives it massively. We want to be a part of something. We want to feel important. We want to feel like we belong to a community, a tribe, or something of that sort. Human mentality and human minds are built like that, that we attract and gravitate towards communities that are desired. If a community is desired more than the other, we want to be a part of it in some form or the other. If not, we'll find something else that we think makes sense to us. Could be the way it looks, and in that sense, maybe the PFP, the way it looks, or let's say the way the community interacts, or maybe we love that. All of those things matter in how this phenomenon has grown over the last couple of years. But it's also, let's say, because of the fact that these are non-fungible in nature, and now you have a symbol that is unique to you as opposed to just having a coin, which is common amongst everybody, which is also easy to access, a lot more easy to access because those are divisible. So you can go and buy 0.00001 Bitcoin and still be a part of the community. But with NFTs, you are limited to the price of the floor. So if you want to be a part of an exclusive club, you've got to pay that price to get in. Now, not many can do that. Not many want to, which is completely fine. For those, there are other projects which are more available, more accessible, right? There are plenty of NFTs which you don't need to pay high prices for, but you would then miss out on the opportunity of being a part of an exclusive club. So I think culture, communities, that tribe mentality that we are gravitated towards, and just the meme and the virality of it is what made this an extremely popular phenomenon in the last 2 years, especially the meme bit, right? If you see in MFers as a brand built by Satoshi, that brand blew up because these were stick figures being sold for thousands of dollars, which made absolutely no sense. And I love that brand. And there are a ton of other brands like that that make absolute sense as far as virtual meme material is concerned and virality is concerned. So I think there are a couple of elements to what contributed to its success.
Correct. Yeah, and I'm just dabbling around like a bunch of different questions that I have. So one question is, what do you think about Web3 folks moving to Bangalore? Like, do you think it's like overhyped? Because today is what, the 18th of June, and I actually have my flight on 20th. So I am moving to Bangalore as well for a while.
Full time. We're moving completely shifted.
And no, it's just me. So I'm just, I'd say vagabonding. So I don't know where it's going to take me. So I'm just going there and seeing how it works and everything. And actually, I've met a lot of Web3 folks there, right? Even paper that we spoke about. And there are so many. And that itself is like an ecosystem for me, right? Because you just instantly tap into these networks, right?
Correct.
The network effect just hits in like this. Right, because right now, if I'm doing it online, and I have the great community Huxley, and which I am a part of, and a community manager at, it's all great. It's amazing. But most of them are based in the US and Canada and other parts of the world. But for more in-person interaction and the osmosis of knowledge, right? Because अगर कुछ बात कर रहे हैं ना, that
proximity of somebody,
exactly. वही बात कर रहा हूँ. So what do you think about it? Because Just a thought.
Yeah, Bangalore is a great place, man. I stayed there for a year. Like I said, I was before the call. I think I stayed there for a year before the pandemic. So I know exactly what you're talking about. You get access to a bunch of amazing minds that build some really cool stuff, and then you just being in their presence, you learn a lot more than you would otherwise. And I've been fortunate to be a part of I think a couple of ecosystems, marketing as one, community management is an ecosystem that I was a part of. Then web tech, all of these. Web AR, virtual reality, mixed reality ecosystems. I worked with a few companies, EdTech as an ecosystem. So I've been a part of these communities, these people that are constantly interacting. And I think that's a great place to be in. Even when we went to Solana Hacker House, I met a bunch of great minds over there and interacted a ton. So definitely it is a hub spot. I think it's also vital this early in the space, because if we are this early, we spend the last 2 years interacting online with people and understanding more about the economy and its functioning and doing and building stuff. It makes it very important for people to come together and also interact face to face, and to have some amount of, let's say, a sense of community building in person. So I guess Bangalore helps in that sense, but I think we'll also grow beyond that and probably go and mature to other cities, other states, which will become hub spots. I think Goa, again, where I stay, is also growing. People are coming along here, doing events, building communities. So I think we'll see a lot more states and cities build these smaller ecosystems of sorts.
Yeah. And also, I think we have a Web3 conference in, I think, July to August. And so if you're going there, I think we can definitely meet IRL and a bunch of folk. I think Superteam is also giving away a few tickets, right? And that is just great, right? So I think we have just 20 up more minutes, and I think you are running out of schedule as well. So just have a few more questions. And so what do you think about the market right now? Because I know it's a very vague question. Just asking. So what about how liquid are NFT holders? I've asked this to a bunch of people and just want to know your thoughts, right? Because some NFT holders put it in a ledger, they're logged in. How liquid are they? How liquid must they be? And yeah, again, not financial advice, just your thoughts again.
Yeah. I mean, I can only say for myself and how I'm looking at it, right? The market is horrible, right? And I can't deny that everybody will agree that the prices are horrible. We're probably going to break below and go to 3 digits in ETH. We probably did a while back. So it's happening. It's bad. But as far as NFTs are concerned, like I said, the floor prices haven't moved. So one thing that's for sure is they may have deviated a little, but one thing for sure is that people are focused towards what the ETH value of each NFT is, and not the USD value of it. So that helps to think of it that way. Maybe if it's a prolonged bear market, you'll see prices drop 50%. That's fair, because if there's illiquidity for let's say 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, you can't expect people to hold that kind of floor prices. It will drop eventually, which is fine. But one thing that's very important is some people are also, like you said, focused towards accumulating these assets and just holding them in the ledger and sitting tight for the next bull cycle, which makes sense if you have projects which are built by real teams that have some real liquidity with them to do this stuff. Like, for example, I own some assets in game companies or gaming projects that are building game worlds. Do these projects have the kind of money they need to build for the next 3 years if the bear cycle lasts that long? Do they have money from whatever NFTs they've sold? Did they liquidate at the top, or do they have money from potential VCs that want to participate, etc.? So depending on how you look at these projects, I think you should be fine on where you put your money and then just watch it grow. Obviously, be liquid, hold USDC, don't gamble all of your money in NFTs, because you won't be able to get out of these projects. If you buy the dip right now, NFTs, you are stuck on NFTs. That's for sure. I bought a bunch of projects recently, which I am definitely sure I can't sell in the next 1 week. If I list them, they won't sell. They'll only probably sell below floor, which is not great for me. Plus, I lose out on royalties, etc. So do not buy NFTs right now in this phase if you don't intend on holding it at least for the next 3-4 years, because we do not know where we're headed. And if you had to maximize and understand volatility and risk based on where we stand, look at it this way. Stocks are risky as compared to most assets, which are fixed income assets. Crypto is 100x risky, and then think of NFTs as 100x more riskier than crypto itself, because it's actually illiquid. While in crypto, you might be able to get away with like a fee. If you pay a higher fee on a DEX, you might be able to liquidate and get out. But on NFTs, you're stuck unless somebody specifically likes the NFT you bought and buys it. So that's the difference, right? So I'd say stay liquid. Don't buy dips on NFTs unless you really love the project. That's my thoughts.
Great thoughts, actually, because I think most people look at this as there's a lot of buzz on Twitter saying buy the dip, buy the dip, buy the dip, but coming back to it, right? Because we already, the bear market has treated us not that great, and do like newcomers even have the money to buy the dip, right? Because there's so much of things happening, and what about like Three Arrow and Three Arrow Capital, and what happened to Luna, and recently even Celsius, right? So how do you think these will affect market? Of course they are affecting, but how do you think this will affect the mindset of the people who are just coming into the NFT space, or even web3 space for that matter?
Yeah, I think it honestly depends on what kind of mentality you come in the space with, right? Like maybe I started the space by looking at Bitcoin and Ethereum as assets to buy and then hold and grow in value. But over the last 2 years, I've been an actual contributor in the ecosystem, and my focus is not towards the prices growing 10x at all. These are assets that allow me to potentially secure things that I need. For example, ETH allows me to buy NFTs and be a part of projects which essentially was not accessible to me because I'm not an investor that's accredited, right? So that kind of accessibility is what I aim for. And that is why it's all right for me if prices go down 10x more, because then, 90% more, because then I can buy into projects I believe in. So if you have that mentality, you're fine. Then if you have an earning mentality, a contributor mentality, you're not worried about prices, unless you want to understand how to take token compensations, how do you negotiate prices, how do you get paid, whether you get paid in native tokens, USDC or ETH or Bitcoin. If you want to figure that out, then maybe you worry about prices. Then maybe you worry about the general macros to figure out, hey, how do you allocate your assets so that you're protected for the next 5 years? All those things matter. But otherwise, I think the price discussion doesn't matter as much if you are actually a contributor. If you're a trader, it's a whole different discussion. Maybe this is not the conversation for you. But otherwise, I think just focus on just adding value, maybe potentially focus on earning from the ecosystem, because there's a bunch of talent in India that can do amazing stuff. There are community builders that are that can be anybody. You could be a dev and you could be a community builder. You cannot be a community builder and be a dev, right? So think of it that way. There's the barrier to entry is non-existent. You need an internet connection and probably a wallet. That's all, and a device maybe. Just focus on earning and contributing. I think people should be good.
Correct. Because the adding value part is not that a lot of people think about when they come into the space. Because, when it's very buzzy, right? When, okay, your friends are doing this and there's a lot of FOMO driven as well, and you come into the space, but eventually you realize that adding value is the best part. And that's how you play the long-term game. If you want to play a long-term game, and that's how you do it. But how do you think? Yeah, I think you were saying something.
Yeah. So it's like with stocks, you were stuck, right? With equity, you were stuck. The only thing you can do in equity is, if you're an investor, is you sit and hold. And you're told by these equity professionals, gurus, that, hey, just buy assets and dips and then hold them for the next 10, 20 years. And then we as humans are very stimulus oriented. Like, we like stimulus. We like being active, doing something, clicking a button, doing some activity that allows us to trigger and feel that dopamine. In many ways, right? So if you're not doing that, you're always going to try and sell or do stuff that is not so good for your portfolio. And I think Web3 and crypto solves that, because what you hold is not just an asset in a company or a project, but you hold a token which has utility attached to it. So if you're participating in a DeFi protocol, that token has a bunch of utility attached to it, as far as collateral, etc., which you can use, governance, all of those things that allow you to do stuff. If you participate in NFT projects, you can then use it to access games, access communities, events. All that stimulus that you need is available over there. If you then leave all of that aside and say that, hey, I have to do something with my assets, you want to work with the company and then earn token compensation, it's possible. With equities, it's not accessible to everybody unless you are like working under a company full time, and then you have ESOPs, which may or may not vest depending on whatever the criteria is. It's illiquid, it's high risk, and here you get direct compensation, which are liquid in many cases, and probably have a shorter vesting period. So just find ways to participate and earn money, and then it takes away the headache of you having to source fiat from your other Web2 work, etc., and then bring it in the ecosystem and then participate and play around, right? Just put the pressure towards earning in the ecosystem, and that should be the goal.
Got it. So what do you think about, because contributing, right? And a lot of people want to contribute, and let's say they're non-coders. How do you think non-coders, and let's say there are a few people, non-coders, who their natural inclination doesn't even lie at coding, and it's kind of impossible for them to code at all. And what do you think? How do you think they can contribute in this space?
There's actually plenty of opportunities for non-coders, right? I mean, you and I, we are proof of that. I think, I'm not sure if you are a coder, but you're also a community manager, right? So you don't need, don't need that particular skill for that. I am not a coder for sure. I'm not a dev, but I do understand the tech fairly enough for anybody to come to me and understand more about the ecosystem. So let's say, for example, if a company wants to understand about which tech stack to build on, I'm their go-to person. I'll walk them through the entire ecosystem, tell them about the pros and cons of every blockchain, every tech that they're going to use. What should they need? What kind of contract should they build? What can a contract do for them? What functionalities are possible? So that's on the strategy side of it. So if you are somebody who understands the ecosystem without being a developer, and you don't need to be a developer, just go and watch videos, participate, learn, ask questions, and then watch and experience, mint stuff, do all those activities, right? You learn a lot faster. So it allows me to be the guidance or the guide for anybody who wants to get started as a company in this world. That's one. You can also be an advisor on the community side of it, be a community manager, consult them on community management, strategies, incentives, all sorts of things, which also is something I do. Then there's marketing. All of those traditional domains that would be there in Web2 are also available in Web3. Maybe the incentives are slightly different. Maybe the way you do it is different because marketing has now elements of community building, incentives for core members, etc., which was absent in the Web2 world. The focus there was driving quantity and driving revenue per user, all of those things, which is not the case over here. You're building a strong group of evangelists. So learn about how to do that. There's plenty of opportunities for non-coders actually. Just have to explore, head the right people up and ask questions, and you'll find opportunities very easily.
Got it. And you talking about hitting the right people up is, actually makes a ton of sense because in the Web2 world, right? You go on LinkedIn and you type this long message and the person even replies or not. And they're the big fish, right? When it's hard for, there's a high entry barrier, right? If you're just getting into whatever you're doing in Web2 and you want to connect with the people, it becomes difficult. But now you're just one tweet away, right? And I was able to, bring you on the pod and we're having this great conversation just by a tweet, just by a message and on DM, which is just great. And do you think there's this openness in the Web3 community saying, okay, come on, let's go on board. Let's do this. Let's see what happens. And do you think that there's that openness?
Yeah, I think because they're so early, because they're so small in size, and because they're so tight knit, everybody knows almost everybody in the ecosystem because we're this early, right? And it also opens us up to being evangelists for this ecosystem. So we are like, okay, let's say if somebody wants to approach us and build something with us, then we are more than understanding that, hey, we started somewhere as well and you want to participate, help them build, because there's net positive value that's being added because of this collaboration. And it definitely helps to reach out to people. There are people more than willing to help you get a job, get an understanding, chat with them, walk them through a strategy, do a bunch of those things. But it also comes with a caveat that, hey, you have to be adding value to them as well. So you have to ask the right questions. You have to make sure that, hey, you have the right proof of work to be able to approach them. And also you have done your fair bit of research, right? Don't go asking questions that can be found on, let's say, Google, a video, somebody's podcast. There's plenty of podcasts, by the way, right?
Yes.
You can add tremendous value. So start with the fundamentals. If you have your questions sorted and nobody's able to answer them, go to Twitter, reach out on DMs and ask people. And people are just very open to get you on board and just get started, because they know that as we progress in the next few years, these people are the ones that are going to build amazing stuff, and there's mutual benefits to be found And we progressively find like the whole term WAGMI that is what it means, right? Finding opportunities, the access to opportunities is what WAGMI means. We are all going to make it. It's not about everybody's going to make it. It's about access to opportunities. That's
Makes
the
sense.
focus.
Makes sense. So WAGMI, the entire term is basically about playing a positive sum game, and the entire synergy that takes place when two people come together, their productivity becomes their end result is much more than what they could have done individually. So that is great. That is great. And great pointers that you've shared, and definitely was great. And I'm moving to Bangalore as well, and I'll meet the other super team folks. It's just great to interact with you. And yeah, do follow me on Twitter as well.
Yeah.
And I just have one last question, Abbas. And this one question, I think I ask all the podcast guests who come on board. So, what advice do you give to a 20-year-old just got into crypto, has no idea what is going on, but wants to do something? मतलब उसको कुछ ना कुछ तो करना है, but उसको पता नहीं है where he has to get started or कहाँ से करना है, right? So he doesn't know what the path is or anything. Yeah.
The general answer, if it was not me, if it was anybody else, the answer would likely always be join a community you actually believe in the values of, and then figure your way out. So let's say if you find a community that you think, or let's say your purpose of joining a community or joining the ecosystem is making strong networks, then join a community with a strong network, a tight-knit network. If you want to be a high-value network, part of a high-value network that drives value, like build stuff, then join a community that builds stuff together. So find developer communities that are building out there and then join them. Find your niche and join them directly if you know exactly what you want to do. But if you do not know what you want to do, then figure out what you like as you join communities multiple times. So join DAOs, join NFT projects, and then see what you vibe the most with. And if you realize that, hey, where you want to be is almost figured, then find a way to contribute and add value to these communities, because it's a lot easier to add value to a community than to a company, right? So add value to a community, build your repo up over there, and then from there start adding value to companies, individuals that are building stuff, and from there you now build a portfolio of work that you have from this ecosystem, which you can then take to be an individual, be sovereign, or just go and participate and work with somebody, which is completely fine. It should be the case if that's what you intend to do, right? So figure a way out communities, what kind of work you want to do, what is the vibe, how do you want to contribute, and then move on to finding jobs. I think that should be the general route people take, but it's open to anybody's interpretation how they want to do it. You could have started with buying an NFT project and then going to crypto, then DeFi, then Web3 protocols like communication, payments, etc. And then you're like, cool, I understood everything. Now I want to work with one of these companies. That's fine too. So there's no one way that works. Like I said, we all come from different ecosystems in different ways. I had no clue I'd be here 2 years back. I was a full-time marketer. So yeah, feel free to try every other community, every other type of thing is available in Web3, and I think you'll figure out what's right for you.
Perfect. I think, that's great, right? Because a lot of people are diving into the space and want to know how to do it. And I think best way is just to get into a nice community, learn. And, yesterday I did a podcast with Ape 8036, and he was telling me that, it's all about being curious and surrounding yourself with smarter people, right? You can't try getting intimidated when you're in a community, because that is when you come out of his comfort zone and start learning more. And that's when the layers peel off, and we're learning all together. So Abbas, it was great having you on the podcast, and we'll definitely meet IRL. And that's what I'd say.
Glad you could I could be here, man. I mean, I had a plenty of fun like answering all these questions. I'm sure this was great. So I hope people get some value out of it, all the questions we answered.
Sure. So all right then, Abbas, we'll meet you IRL sometime.
Bye.
Bye.